Hi, it's Pastor Andy again, and today we are going to talk about the R, about being responsive as it relates to the sermon that I preached on Sunday, 1 Samuel chapter 14, and about how Jonathan and his armor bearer took on an entire garrison of the Philistines because they were motivated, Monday's video also, because they were observant, yesterday's video, because they are responsive, we'll talk about that today, and engaged, which comes tomorrow. So these 4 days are about being more, about doing more. And as we think about being responsive, ultimately, we can have an attitude that is either good or bad in that. We can respond to the needs of others for our benefit or for their benefit. Now, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you may know about this from the past, from studies, or maybe if you've watched the previous couple of days, you've seen this as well. But these two are called our basic needs, these bottom two. And if these needs are not met, the idea of the pyramid here is that if we don't get these basic needs met, then we won't be able to move up the need chart. And in some ways, this is the absolute least of the needs, but in some ways, this is the greatest of the needs. And so the physiological needs, again, are going to be basic things like food and water and stuff. Our safety needs are going to be things like shelter and protection, having a job and having money coming in. Yesterday, I talked about the idea of being observant and being around others, to have this love and belonging and seeing the needs of others and being able to share in those needs together. Today I want to talk about esteem because this begins to consider what we do. This is about fulfilling ourselves. But it's not just self-fulfillment as this one is. I'll get to that tomorrow. But what this one is having esteem. We have done things, but if we think about what self-esteem is, part of that is having a self-confidence. Part of that is having the confidence that we have because of how others feel about us. It's about getting a certain number of likes on Facebook or having a certain number of followers on Instagram or whatever it is. Oh, I've got so many followers, and that builds my self-esteem. But the opposite of that is true, because when people stop following you, when people stop liking, what's going on, then all of a sudden your self-esteem goes down. So there is something much greater than self-esteem, and that is self-actualization, and that is tomorrow. But we also must understand that this has to do with responding. We see a need, we understand a need, we have observed a need here, we are motivated to do something about it, going back to Monday. Now we respond to that need, and others respond to us. So this can get into the idea of how do we feel about ourselves based upon how others are doing. It's about prestige. It's about rank. It's about comparison to others sometimes. So it's important, but again, there's a higher level that we'll talk about tomorrow from a Christian perspective. But as we think about responding, this does matter. I've heard several comments over the years from being a pastor here or wherever I've served at a church, and somebody asks, "Oh, you're a part of that church," and they have an idea of what that church is. Now, it may not be the right idea, but in a sense, what others are projecting is our reputation upon us. That is a part of our self-esteem, or our church's esteem, as it might be. More important than reputation, as I've said before, is our character. But as we respond, we have people react differently. Now, here's what we must understand about responding. We cannot respond to every need. And I'm going to just say it bluntly, I don't think we're supposed to respond to every need. And I'm not talking about the necessity of a need, the level of necessity. I'm not weighing that. I'm not talking about the person who presents the need. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I cannot respond to every need. We cannot respond to every need. Yesterday I was talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and the idea of Paul using the metaphor of the body. And I talked about the fingers and the eyes. The eyes have a specific purpose. The fingers have a specific purpose. And the way God designed our body is able to do a lot of things. But I assure you that there are things that my body can do that yours cannot, especially if you're 30 years older than me. And I can assure that if you're 30 years younger than me, there are things that your body can do that mine no longer can. But I can also say that there are things that your body and my body can do differently regardless of our ages because of how your mind works, because of your skills, because of your background, because of your training. And so the way that I might meet a need might be very different than the way you might meet a need. And that's why it's so wonderful to come together as the body of Christ so that we can meet more needs together, because I have a limited ability to meet needs on some needs, that you might be able to meet those needs in a great way, and vice versa. So when we come together as the body of Christ, we're able to meet more needs that way. But here's the reality. We are still one local body of Christ. And it doesn't matter whether our church is 50, 500, or 50 million. That doesn't matter. 50 million would be a different issue. But the point is that not every local body and not every local characterization of Christ can still meet every need, because every body is different. Just as my body, my personal body, can do different things than yours, and yours can do different things than mine, our church can do different things than, say, another church in town, or another church in another town, or another state, or halfway across the world. And so each church collectively then can respond to the needs that are observed. And if I am not able to meet a need and you are, then I could point them to you. Similarly, if our church is not able to meet a need, then I could help someone to find a church who could meet that need. Now, ultimately, I'm not talking about the need for salvation, although that would apply too. I'm just talking about practical needs. Let me give you an example. I am not a counselor. I know that. That is a limitation of mine. I don't pretend to be a counselor. I don't desire to be a counselor. I don't have that. Now, I can empathize with someone. And if someone needs some counsel, and I've counseled many people here in this building and elsewhere, I will talk to them and I will meet with them and I will say, let me talk to you, and I will be with you as long as I can. And sometimes that's one meeting. And sometimes it's 4 or 5. But if they get to a point where they need help that is beyond me, it is in their best interest that I understand where I am on this grid, that I am not capable of helping them any further. Maybe I could pretend to do so, but it is in my best interest to help them. It is in their best interest to get the help that they need. And so what I will do in that moment is I'll say, let me put you in touch with somebody else. That's what we need to do as churches. There is a need. I've observed a need, or maybe they've come to me and say, I need to talk to you about something. And I am responding to them, but sometimes the best response is to say, you know what? I can't help. None of you want me to come and build a house for you. I can help. I can carry, I can nail, I can hammer. I've done almost everything in a house. But you don't want me to plan that process. You don't want me to be a part of that process. The best thing I could do for you is to help in some way, but not to do it for you. So, same thing for a church. We need to be motivated. We need to be observant. And we need to respond and to fulfill those needs that are around us. But again, just as one person can't fulfill all the needs in a neighborhood, one church can't fulfill all the needs in a town. And so we can work together, we can partner together under the gospel for the glory of the Lord to accomplish greater things. But it begins with us being willing to respond. And that leads us to tomorrow, because we begin to respond, and we do respond, but we still have one more step to go.